Welcome to the Stephen Courson Show. We are going to be talking about the three silent wealth killers that are among us right now. I mean, these are assassins in your wallet. They're taking money from you, and you may not even be completely aware of them or aware of them at all. So don't worry. That's what I'm here for, going to make you aware of them so you can do something about them. Let's get into it right now. So the first one, you've probably heard a lot of recently. The first one is called inflation. Now, I wanted to start with this one because, like I said, out of the three, this is the one that the majority of you have heard of. But I still get a lot of questions from people about what exactly is inflation. And basically, what it comes down to is that it doesn't matter if it's the US dollar, the yen, the euro, any government that is printing more of their money, it devalues that currency. It's just supply and demand. The second there's more of something, it's worth less. So that is the core cause of inflation. And what that ends up doing is it makes everything more expensive, right? So right now, and listen, every government prints money and has inflation. A healthy amount of inflation would be like a 2 to 3%. That's what the US is notorious for shooting for. They're shooting for that 2 3% is the ceiling. You don't want to see things increasing more than that because then it's getting really out of hand. That's why we saw $5, $6 gas prices this summer. Now, granted, there's a lot of other factors going into that, but it's why you're going to the grocery store and you're seeing, all of a sudden, a bag of apples is $8. Like, what the heck? Like, why is it so much? Some bananas, they're double in price. Like, all your food, anything you buy at the store, it's all going up in price. That is inflation because the cost of manufacturing those things has gotten more expensive. The cost of shipping those things has gotten more expensive. The US printed more money. There's now more money in the system to go around. So there's multiple different factors here, and that is taking the price of these things up. So that's how inflation is seen in our world. It is the constant rising of prices of literally everything. This is why when you talk to your grandparents, they'll tell you, "Oh, I bought my first house in 1935, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, and it was only $1,000 for a house." And you look at that house nowadays, if it's still standing, and it's like, how in the world is that thing $500,000? Well, that's inflation. Now, the interesting thing is that over time, inflation has gone up a lot more than the average wages. So, if you were making, minimum wage back in the 30s, it was a lot better than making minimum wage nowadays because things weren't so out of whack. But I digress. So inflation is honestly, it is the COVID of it is the pandemic of the economy. The thing about inflation is it doesn't matter who you are, how rich, how poor, it is impacting your money and your wealth. It is taking it from you. If you had $100,000 sitting in the bank account, and then last year things went up 8%. Guess what? Yeah, that number might still say $100,000, but it's only going to buy you $92,000 worth of stuff that it did the last year. This is why when you have, guys like Dave Ramsey or something, they're like, listen, just get $1,000 into your emergency fund. He's been saying that for about 20 years. Guess what? You can't he used to give the example of like if you ran over and all four of your tires popped, you could replace them. Well, you used to be able to replace all four tires a little while ago. You can't do that now. It costs a lot more money than $1,000 to replace four tires. Why? Because of inflation. Now it's going to cost you, $1,200, $1,300, something like that to get some basic tires, not even the nice ones. So that's the point. You have to constantly be adjusting, these things because they change. Money changes. The economy changes. You have to be prepared for that. So anybody giving advice that is the same advice from 20 years ago, when it comes to certain things like that, there's certain principles of money that are still good. They're timeless. But when it comes to something that has to do with amounts, if they haven't adjusted it, then it's something to consider. So that's the big one. Inflation, like I said, this one's been talked about a lot. It's all over the news cycle. It's pretty much driving the stock market right now about how much it's going up or not. So that is the first silent wealth killer, and that is by far the biggest one. Now, what can you do about it? There's nothing you can do about inflation except, who you choose, your politicians to be in monetary policy. And even then, there's only so much you can do at that point. Um, but that's it. So you can't do anything about inflation, but you can combat inflation with how you invest. So when you are in, number one, you need to be investing. Number two, when you do invest, whatever you're investing in, you need to think that if I'm going to earn 10% year over year, if I'm going to try to earn 5% or 6%, whatever it is you're trying to do in order to meet your goals, you need to subtract 2 to 3% from that, because in the long term, that's how much that's going to go down. $1 million today in 30 years is going to be the equivalent of having about, maybe 500,000. So that's how you kind of have to think about that. So you need to be investing. And then as you invest, you need to take inflation into account. And you need to make sure that you are at least investing. If you're a super conservative person, you need to be investing to earn more than whatever inflation is on a year basis. A very simple example would be something like, so I think Coca-Cola is a stock that puts out a dividend. So every quarter they are paying out, I believe it's like around 3.5%. Well, in normal years that the US is doing about 2 to 3%, if all you did was just hold Coca-Cola stock, regardless of whether or not the stock goes up or down, you're going to get that 3% dividend. So they are going to pay you on that. And that would be something that would basically be a break even to inflation. That's a super conservative way to look at it, but it's a way that we need to be thinking about it. I call it the game of loans. You're either loaning your money out to the stock market or somebody's loaning it to you, and we're all, playing that fluctuation game. So that is inflation. One of the biggest wealth killers, been really bad to us recently, and something you definitely got to pay attention to. The second one that I want to get into is the and there's just no nicer way to say this, but it's another I word. And the second silent killer is ignorance. And I particularly hate this wealth killer because it's so easy to get past, and yet so many people choose to play ostrich and just stick their head in the sand. And when it comes to their finances specifically, and the thing I've noticed about this is that when it comes to ignorance about your financial situation and really knowing what's going on with your money, it really doesn't matter how much money that person has. If anything, people who have less money, I find, tend to be a little bit more aware of what's going on because they have to. They don't have as much to go around. Or if you're only making $1,500, dollars every paycheck, that goes away pretty quickly. So you don't have to think about it as much. I'm talking to people that are making 150, 200. I mean, I talked to someone making $500,000 a year, and they don't really know like exactly where all their money's going. They've got a vague idea, but they're not sure. I mean, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. So ignorance is a huge wealth killer. So pre-pandemic, this is some good news. Pre-pandemic, about 1 in 4 people had a budget. And if you're watching this on the old YouTube, I'm going to pop up some screens here. And basically, what happened is that when we, I'm sorry, I totally forgot to share the screen here, guys, for those of you that are watching this. But yeah, if you want to look at this, so right here, uh, people found that, where is it? Oh, I'm sorry, this one. So the survey found that 88% said everyone should budget. So great. We're all in agreement that we all think we should all be budgeting, even though, do as I say, not as I do. Okay, got it. 88%. 60% said that they prefer pen and paper, and only 9% are using apps for budgeting. Dear God, it is the 21st, 22nd century. I don't know. It's 2022, whatever it is. We don't need to be using pen and paper. At least at a minimum, be using Excel. The reason pen and paper is a problem is because things change. Things are constantly changing. And if you are using pen and paper, I guarantee you the majority of those people are not. They're not going back and updating every single month what their budget actually is. And as you get more income and more expenses, you're definitely not keeping up with that. And even if you are someone who is part of that 60% who is faithfully updating that on a monthly basis and keeping up and tracking everything, the amount of time that you are wasting doing it manually like that. You could be spending with your family, going on, to do whatever hobby you want to, earning more money. I mean, the amount of time you would spend updating this manually, I don't even want to think about it. You can do this automatically. If you're not using apps at minimum Excel, then you're not fooling anybody. You're not doing it consistently. It's just as simple as that. 40% said it's a family affair and the household works together to stay on budget. Okay, that's cool. I really like that. Let's make this a culture thing within the family, especially if you've got some older kids. Make them aware of the situation, and hey, let's all work together. That's good news. Nearly twice as many people, 62%, said they will save throughout the year for holidays compared to 33% in 2019 who said the same thing. So, and we see this all the time with recessions. People start thinking about money when things are bad. That's fine. The problem is, does that discipline stick around when things are good? Well, that's not also, the full thing, because even though people are budgeting, why did Amazon Prime, here we are in a recession, why did Amazon Prime or Amazon on their Prime Day have a record selling day? So even in the midst of the pandemic, even with everything going on, Amazon still has a record day. But we're so great. We're budgeting more. We're being more aware of our money. But then Amazon's having a great day. Over 200 million credit cards have been opened over the pandemic. Well, let's do some quick math on that. With all the credit cards, there's only 400 million, so people in this country. Everything. I mean, that's a lot of freaking credit cards. So we are again, doing some things well, but this really feels like a 2 steps forward, 5 steps backward situation in some cases. So yeah, that's one of the big problems. And this is something interesting. Out of the 34% of people that were non-budgeters in this particular survey, they said they don't earn enough to use a budget. So that's an interesting fallacy, because a lot of people that actually have money, the amount again really doesn't matter. That leads us to our third silent wealth killer. And the third silent wealth killer is something that you are probably holding very carefully, comfortably in your hand, or it's close by. It's a very treasured asset to you. And I'm pretty sure they will be surgically attaching these things to our faces or just implanting into our bearings. Yes, I'm talking about your phone. Your phone is a gateway to your wallet, but it is a gateway between your wallet to thousands and thousands of corporations who are spending millions and billions of dollars in ads and content and psychologically hacking your brain in order to get access to your money. And there's 3 ways that they do this. And I'm going to talk about this right now, because again, this is really bad. The first way that they do this is by apps that you paid for that you aren't using anymore. There was a report that came out just recently that was something above 40% of all apps purchased get used once and then they're never used again. So over 40% of apps, they're tracking this. Over 40% of apps, you're coming in here, you're doing a little Face ID thing, a little double click, boom, check goes through, hits a credit card. You don't think about it. You use the app one time, you don't use it anymore. That's a lot of money being spent. I mean, when you think about some of these apps are $5, you don't think about that too much. But then $5 a year or a month is $60. And then if you had 3 or 4 of those, you're talking about a couple $100 right there. Well, a couple $100 a year can make a pretty big difference when you don't have a lot of money. And if you do have a lot of money, guess what? I know people who have Spotify paid versions. They have Pandora, Spotify, the YouTube Red, and what was the other one? Then there's another one. There are like 4 different streaming services for the exact same thing. I was like, pick one. Like just pick one. So apps you don't use, huge problem. Pay attention to it. Do an audit on your phone. Just go through your phone right now, or when the podcast is done. Don't get off it yet. But go through the phone and just say, do I use this? Okay, no. Am I paying for this? I think on iPhones, I don't know about Androids, but I think on iPhones, you can actually go through and look. There's a place in settings, I believe, you can Google it, to where you can actually look at subscriptions and you can get a list of everything that you're subscribed to on your phone. Just go on that and look at some things. I guarantee you'll find some stuff that you'll cancel. Write me an email, get on the DMs and everything, and let me know how much money you saved. Okay. Number two, paying too much for a new phone on payment plans. This is a huge problem. Look, I love my iPhone. Okay. They come out with some great phones with, the Samsungs and all these other things. There's some really cool phones that come out. The reality is that the difference between the iPhone 13 that I have right now, this is, I believe, the newest model, the difference between this one, and I have the Pro, so I have the updated camera, and the 11 is some speed stuff, some chips, nothing too serious. Now, look, there is a problem in tech with planned obsolescence to where companies will purposefully, there's Moore's law with processing power and like all these different things that go into it. But basically, your phone will slow down naturally as it gets older. But I mean, I know people who have iPhone 8s that's been around for 5-something years and they're still working just fine. Now, look, I'm not one of those guys that's like, hey, you should never have new stuff. But if you have an iPhone 13 and the iPhone 14 comes out next year, you probably shouldn't do anything to get the iPhone 14. It's highly unlikely. It's very rare in the tech cycle with where we are right now that there's that much of a generational difference in between devices. And if there is, and there's some game-changing fourth camera that allows you to see in 4D, sure, go for it if that's something that's going to be relevant to you. But for the majority of people, it's not. So, they make it so easy to change your phones, put it on a regular monthly plan. We're just used to having this $250 to $400 credit card bill or phone payment plan. Is just part of everyday life. No, go in, negotiate it, switch carriers, get the new deals that they're offering, and don't upgrade your phone every year. It's as simple as that. I know it doesn't sound hard, but that is a new way that they are eating into your wallet just with these devices. The third one is the most important one. Okay. Now, this is something that is called payment coupling. And I want to talk about this one. I'm going to throw some stuff up on the screen right here because I want people to be able to see this. So this is a link. You can buy it for $40, but I'll give you the synopsis here. That has to do with a study that was done. Some really smart people did this. And keep in mind, this was done back in, I believe it was 2001 when they did this. So this effect was bad in 2001. It's 5 times as bad now because it's so much easier to do this. So what they did is, this is MIT, super smart people. They went and they found that with credit cards, you have a higher willingness to pay for things with credit cards than you do cash. Now, that may not be shocking to you. What should shock you is how much. So this was fascinating. In this study, what they did is they went and they found people that were trying to go to a professional basketball game that was really high in demand. And what they found is that when they split the groups in half and they said, only you can pay with cash and you guys can pay with credit card, when they split the groups, the amount that people were willing to pay to go to this game, the people who could pay with credit card paid twice as much, 100% more than the people willing to pay with cash. That's incredible. 100% more they were willing to do. Again, this was 20 years ago that they did this. The reason that's a big deal is because it comes down to psychological pain. When you have cash in hand and you have to walk around and you've got a $20 bill or $50 bill, whatever, and you have to physically hand that over and you have to mentally watch the fact that you are now decreasing your net worth, there is a level of psychological and emotional pain that you go through, even if it's minute, that can cause you to have pause and say, do I really need this? Do I really want this? Am I willing to pay this much for it? I may be willing to do it, but is there another way I can get it? Can I get it cheaper? That is what we are emotionally and psychologically driven to when we handle cash. The problem when you get to credit card is there's this level of dissonance from that pain because we don't pay that credit card for a couple more days. We don't pay it till the end of the month. Hell, sometimes we don't even pay it at the end of the month. We may not even pay it for months, a year, if ever. It doesn't feel as real. The pain has been pushed to the end of it. So I get my instant gratification. I get the pleasure of whatever it is I'm trying to get right now. But then, yeah, I can wait on it. So that was there. Guess what? This isn't a secret. Every major company in the world is incredibly aware of this. So that happened 20 years ago. Since then, it's only gotten worse. So look at this. Dun and Bradstreet, they do a lot of research and stuff. They found that people will spend 12 to 18% more using credit cards than cash. Okay. The Bank of Boston found a sharp disparity between it. No, whatever, Sherlock. One study from the Journal of Applied Psychology found that diners tipped an average of 4.3% more just by seeing a credit card logo on the tray that holds a restaurant bill. Now, when you go to a restaurant, the reason there is a credit card bill on it is because they know you will tip better because of it. They are playing mind games with you. They are way ahead of you on this stuff. McDonald's once reported that its average ticket was $7 instead of $4.50 when people were using credit cards. It goes on and on and on. So the point is that payment coupling, like I said, it has to do with the amount of physical or psychological and emotional pain that we get from handing over cash, and then the ability to push that pain away with credit cards because we know, well, I'm not paying for it right now, I'm paying for it later. Just that. Disney armbands. When you go to the Disney theme parks, they give you these magic bands. Well, the only thing that's magic about them is that they make your money disappear really fast. So when they did this study, this was over a decade ago that I saw this. When they did this study, they found that the average person at the time, once they were inside the park, was spending about $18 a day. And then when they did the magic bands, which is synced to your credit card, they found that went up to 40 something dollars a day. It was like over 250%. Guess what? The average park person did not get that much richer. So what happened? They didn't feel the pain of giving money away and paying for the ice cream and all this other stuff. It was just, oh, boom. It's magical part of the experience. It's like a Harry Potter wand. Boop, there you go. Money's gone. That simple. So payment coupling, the fact that you can take this phone and we can just, oh yeah, that looked cool. I think I'll get that. Boop, boop. Face ID. Didn't even think about it. Double click right here. It's so easy. Boop, boop. Done. Sync. Done. It's going to be in my driveway in 2 days. I don't even have to think about it. So easy. This is why it's so hard for people nowadays to get ahead of the game because our brains have been hacked. They know how to get those little dopamine squirts out of us. Our brains have been hacked through our phones, not just to get attention, but to spend money on these things. And look, I love technology. Clearly, I have a phone, and I'm not saying I've never paid for it, using that, but I am very aware of it. And you have to be vigilant because if you are not controlling your money, then somebody else is. It's as simple as that. So that is what I had for today. Those are the three killers, the three silent killers: inflation, ignorance, and your phone. Specifically when it comes to the phone, we talked about the three. There is the apps you paid for, but that you don't see. And then the paying too much for the phone payments, and then the payment coupling. So hopefully this has been helpful. You'll look at this and be able to go, you know what? I'm going to be more aware of this. I'm going to create a plan. I'm going to create a budget. Do all the things that you need to do. Take control of your money. Don't let anybody else control it for you until our paths cross again.